I've now beaten half of the Night Lords in Elden Ring Nightreign, and already a blaring issue has made itself apparent. I would personally wager that if this isn't tweaked, the game will see a large drop off in players quite quickly in its life cycle. What I'm referring to here is difficulty, but maybe not in the sense you're thinking. It's not that the game is too hard, rather the difficulty isn't spread out in a balanced manner. Once you get a hang of the game, you'll find yourself breezing through the initial 2 days every single time you enter a run. There's a couple of the more dangerous bosses scattered around the map, but once you get a good feel for how powerful your character is, you'll know when to avoid them and when you're strong enough to take them down without any major issues. The most challenging part of the game lies with the final boss of each run, the Night Lords. Before going any further, let me clarify something just in case I come across in the wrong way. The final boss of a run should absolutely be the hardest aspect of the game. However, the way the game is currently balanced makes each expedition feel like a 40-minute boss run. As already mentioned, once you learn the core fundamentals of the game and understand how to plot your route across the map, you're practically guaranteed to make it to the Night Lord, assuming your 2 teammates are decent. But when you reach this point, the jump in difficulty skyrockets. In my personal experience, we can decimate the day 2 boss with 0 problems, take no damage, and have it practically stun locked the whole time, only to barely get the final boss down to 30% HP before failing. Is there an element of skill contributing here? Absolutely. For sure, a good enough player can get all the way through a solo run without dying. I've already watched it happen on YouTube. But this isn't always a great way to look at the problem. Using that logic, we would never be able to talk about any balance issues in any games, because skilled individuals would always be able to beat whatever you threw at them, given enough time and practice. But there's a reason Shadow of the Erdtree saw nerfs not long after its launch. Even From Software are able to acknowledge when a game may be leaning too far one way or another. There's a fine line to walk with this. You want the encounters to be difficult enough such that players aren't beating each lord on their first try, but equally, I personally believe more of the challenge should be allocated towards getting to the final boss. Roguelikes tend to follow this line of thinking. Typically in a game like Hades, if you've reached the final boss, it's because you feel that your build is adequate enough to beat it. Otherwise you would have reset the run and went again already. After all, RNG plays a huge factor on your final build. However, in Nightreign, you're not able to reset a run, not in multiplayer anyway, which I'd argue is the intended way to play. Even if you clear most landmarks to give yourself the best fighting chance at obtaining a powerful build, RNG still has the chance to shaft you. Investing 30 to 40 minutes of playtime only to be deleted by the final boss due to harsh RNG isn't a great feeling. Nah, but for real, 40 minutes is a lot of time to invest in one roguelike run. Think about even how much of a regular Elden Ring playthrough you could probably get through in that time. You also need to consider that, well, at least from the 5 Night Lords I've fought so far, these guys are all brand new encounters with movesets a player has never seen before. When Margit pops up during your day 1 or day 2 run, okay, cool, like that's Margit, I fought him in Elden Ring, I know what he does. But when 3-headed dog with a big sword on chain that can also turn into fireballs appears in front of you, yeah, funnily enough, I don't know what that guy does. In your typical Souls games, you can expect to face a boss multiple times while still getting used to their timings, attack patterns, or unique mechanics. And when you fail, there may be a short boss run, but for the most part you can get back in the arena and try again in no time. Not in Nightreign, however. Being asked to face a Night Lord, you need to go through the Battle Royale circle, which has a fixed timer by the way. You can expect 3 attempts at any given boss to take around an hour and a half to 2 hours. I could probably fail an Elden Ring boss over 50 times during that same period, if that's what it took to learn how to fight it. What I'm getting at is that unless you either A, have an insanely broken or cheesy build, or B, you have Let Me Solo Her in your squad, the average player isn't beating a Night Lord in their first 3 attempts. Other roguelikes tend to have systems in which you're intended to fail your first few attempts, however the player gains access to more power with each run, making your second and third attempts much more possible than the first. Nightreign doesn't really have that. You get relics which follow the same principle to an extent, but they don't make a huge difference in the endgame. Initially, the power increase they offer will be noticeable, but as your build grows during a run, their impact drops off. Individual learning and practice is of course the main thing you carry with you into each attempt, very on brand with a From Software game. And to make myself clear before my point gets lost, the game should be difficult. The problem is that once players clear the current content for the first time, I don't know how many will continue. That's where I see the big drop off happening. Speaking personally, I can already see this happening to myself already. I don't expect an infinite amount of content, but you'd hope a roguelike's core gameplay loop would be satisfactory enough to pull you back in time and time again. And by the way, don't let any of what I'm saying affect your personal enjoyment of the game. If you see yourself playing for another 100 hours, good. Hardcore Souls fans are likely going to get their money's worth out of Nightreign. I'm more so speaking to the player base at large. Of course, there is the point to be made that players at large will always quit a game early into its life cycle. If you don't know me, I primarily make Monster Hunter content, and Wilds has seen the same thing happen. It can be tricky to figure out how much content a game should reasonably have, or how long it should be able to maintain a player's attention. A level of subjectivity is always in play here after all. I was talking to some friends about this situation, and we all agreed that Nightreign is probably being used as a test for future games like the Duskbloods, which is coming out on the Switch too. On a core level, there's a good game here, and for the most part, I'm really happy with it. The question I'm left with is how closely is this game supposed to stick to the roguelike genre? Technically, I don't think it's even described as a roguelike, but I think we all agree that is the angle From Software have taken with this. There's absolutely apparent elements of roguelike here, but the experience is much closer to a co-op randomised Elden Ring than anything else. And to be fair, a lot of my criticism here today has been from the perspective of viewing Nightreign as a roguelike, so maybe I'm way off with that. Instead, maybe I should be looking at the game for what it is, a super unique, difficult co-op boss rush. And one of the final clarifications of this video, because I know it's a sensitive subject, difficulty in games is also heavily subjective, and I anticipate a good chunk of you guys, especially those of you deep in the Souls-like community, will disagree with aspects of what I've discussed here today. Let's talk about it more in the comment section down below. If you think the current experience is well balanced, let me know why you think so. If you agree with anything I've stated today, which points in particular have resonated with you. In the meantime, I'm going to keep pushing through to clear my remaining Night Lords. In fact, I'm having enough fun that I will probably end up going for the 100% achievements. The co-op survival is the primary focus here. Communication with your two other allies is imperative. Pings do the trick most of the time when joined by good players, but even so there is situations where one player will think one option is better than the other, or maybe the zone's about to come in and one player hasn't realised yet. Or for me, one of the main things is when you're down in a boss fight, but it's not safe to pick you up. However, your teammates wanting to help end up both grouping up on top of one another, only to be AoE down in the process. Simply being able to shout out loud, like, yo guys, focus on staying alive right now, I'll tell you when I'm safe, that would genuinely make a world of difference to most runs. And once again, I think it is fairly evident, the game is intended to be played as co-op. I know you can do it solo of course, but you understand what I'm saying, right? A co-op based game where time and decision making plays an incredibly vital factor. I think it's only right that communication needs to be implemented in the game to compensate for that. Playing with two other friends in a group of 3, of course, is the most adequate way to play the game, and you'll find your experience to be way easier if you do that. Okay, that's enough yapping though for the time being, I think. Hope you enjoyed this discussion video. Thanks for watching.